All right, Willow Street project update.
Yes. Oh, you want to start that, Mayor? I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I'd say that the only way I could start this is that in conjunction with the renovation of Sickle Schools, we had some things that are undone as far as the design of Willow Street. I want to thank Rich Gardella and Teresa, and then the Board of Education. We've gotten together. We've had numerous meetings with their engineering firm, Baller Engineering. And I guess Teresa or Rich, if you want to take it from here, but I think through many hours of consideration of all the needs, they've come up with an excellent plan. So Rich, you want to talk us through it a little bit so everybody can see?
Sure. Good evening. So as the mayor had mentioned, I've met with Bowler Engineering, the consulting engineering firm for the Board of Ed. And also we met recently with some Board of Ed folks, Teresa and the mayor and myself. And we looked at the Willow Street corridor as a whole. As you recall, back in, I think it was 2013 or 14, we did Willow Street from Oak Place heading east. We always kind of left this area knowing that the school was going to be doing some type of improvements or addition. In 2017, we put in new curbs and sidewalks in front of all the residential properties from Oak heading west, just short of the school project, and also some curbing on the south side of Willow. So obviously recognizing the condition of the parking area, the proposal to expand the parking area, looking at the age of the drainage and the infrastructure as it relates to that, and knowing that the school will be tying into some of that drainage pipe, it makes sense now to do this project as an overall project with the school. Once again, I've met with the engineers. We've kind of drafted a scope of work. It expands the initial work of just adding some parking along Willow. It will also include upgrading the drainage pipe to Fairhaven Road, milling and paving all of Willow Street, implementing some type of drop off or loading zone in front of the immediate school area, and adding all that additional much needed parking on the south side along the park. So in a nutshell, that's the scope of the work. We're waiting for some additional base mapping to be done by the engineering consultant of the school, which is Bowler Engineering. They're going to submit some preliminary designs to my office for review. We're going to circle back with Board of Ed and, internally with us. And then I don't know, Teresa, if you want to talk about some dates we had proposed moving forward, but that's about it.
Yes, I'll happily take over here. As you recall, we had this on the workshop last week, so I could bring the last meeting to bring the governing body up to speed that we were meeting with the representatives of the Board of Education. We had several very positive meetings. We agreed, or at least recommending to the governing body, Attorney Cannon has drafted an interlocal agreement. And basically and fundamentally, the cost of the project will be borne 50% by the Board of Ed and 50% by the Borough of Fairhaven. Almost all of the improvements will be either on the Borough Street or in the borough's right of way, a small amount on the school property. As Rich said, when we're all said and done here, this will be a big improvement to Willow Street and the surrounding intersection of Willow Street and Fairhaven Road, including drainage improvements to the area. We are looking, the Board of Education, I believe, is looking to approve the interlocal agreement that Attorney Cannon drafted. We're really just waiting on the engineering estimate, which don't hold me the number, but should be around in the neighborhood of $200,000, with 50% being paid from the Borough of Fairhaven and 50% from the Board of Ed. Like any road project, we kind of put this on a fast track because we want to get the bid out, because we need to have the work done over the summer when the children are not there and prior to the opening of the school year in September. So with that in mind, on or about May 10th, we think, we'll look to authorize the bids from the Borough of Fairhaven. On June 7th, we'll open the bids. We'll look to award the bid on June 14th, and the work will start, I would imagine, several weeks after that. The way we're proposing that we go ahead and pay for this after consulting with the CFO, the attorney, and the auditor, is the Borough of Fairhaven will use previously authorized funds for roads and drainages that were in your 2018 and 2020 bond ordinances. And then the Board of Education will reimburse us at the 50% at the conclusion of the project, which I'm sure will be late summer or September. And then the CFO will set that money up in a reserve to pay down the debt against those ordinances. It's cleaner that way because as state law goes, we're not allowed to reimburse a capital account. So if we wouldn't be able to take that money and put it back in the capital account. So it's best to put it against the debt for those two ordinances that we'll be spending. And that's, the parties will bear their own professional fees. Obviously we're putting in Rich Gardella's time, and the Board of Education is paying for Bowler Engineering, and they're working on the specs and the bid package together. So that's pretty much where we are. With everyone's permission, I will circulate a copy of the draft interlocal agreement. I just was making sure that the Borough Board of Education attorney was fine with it. Him and Attorney Cannon will work out any details between now and putting it on our agenda on May 10th.
Yep.
And I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Teresa,
Yes.
are there any sketches or renderings that would show what the proposed
Rich
changes?
shared some last week. I don't know, Rich, do you still have the ability to share? It's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I have the Bowler plan that has the aerial that shows the expanded sidewalk area that I proposed out at Fairhaven Road and whatnot. I could pull that up.
Yeah. I'll
All right,
say
hold
that,
on.
to reiterate, the redesign accomplishes a great deal. It adds enough parking so all the staff and teachers will be able to park in front of the school. So they won't be on the side streets, or they won't be in the Smart Start or any of the lots. They'll all be right in front of the school. Rich came up with a concept by where we're going to expand the parking lot on the corner of Fairhaven and Willow, which makes it a lot safer at one of our main entry points along that sidewalk. And we'll also be upgrading our drainage. So if you come down Willow and you make a right-hand turn right there in front of Nauvoo, we always have problems with the macadam because the drainage underneath is deteriorating. So all that'll be new, and it'll be able to be maintained much better. This is a great plan.
Yeah, one of the main focuses was the Fairhaven Road intersection, ADA improvements, the curb ramps across the street, proper crosswalks. As you know, we had put in the sidewalk along Fairhaven Road, kind of looking ahead at this type of, this project's coming forward. This area here is actually widening the sidewalk. It's a bump out that would fall into line with the parking line. This is where they, local PD would put those pylons. So that kind of mimics that area where the curb is. It also assists in creating more real estate at this corner because the entrance to the restaurant is right on the intersection. And then only has one crossing at Fairhaven. Having the two crosswalks is a little confusing from a ped bike safety standpoint and also from crossing guards. So that kind of fixes that. And then looking down here, this was what, we had always talked about, was adding the additional parking. And then I don't have it all the way to Oak Place, but the project would extend, like all this is all new curb and sidewalk all in here. So we would just simply mill and pave, restripe the parking stalls. And then this is the area that we're looking at creating a drop off and working with the Board of Ed on how that would function.
And then I think, Rich, the other thing you're considering or you're examining is changing those from 90-degree spaces to angled spaces.
Yeah, that was the proposal. We had another report done by a consulting engineer on behalf of the Board of Ed, and they had recommended recommended the angular spaces. So they're gonna lay that out as well.
Mhm.
And
We're
then,
also gonna tie the drainage in, right, Rich, from the school drain and install new
Yes.
drain pipe there?
as part of the addition, drain, all the roof runoff will comes down, comes across the front yard, ties into a new manhole for a drain line that comes out the driveway of Sickles, ties into an existing catch basin here, comes out to Fairhaven Road. We're looking at upgrading this whole system here. And then obviously this catch basin over where I show this crosswalk is in deplorable condition, and including the roadway. So this whole intersection would get milled and paved out, and then new structures, upgrade the pipe, and tie it all together. Yep.
And Rich, from the point of view of the students who are biking, do you feel that there are safety improvements? It seems to me like the wider sidewalk right there on Fairhaven Road and Willow, that certainly adds some improvement.
Yes, this is going to add about 7 feet of sidewalk. Right now, the sidewalk is adequate width, but you've got some overgrown landscaping. You've got a little wall there that becomes tricky when you're trying to walk. And, during the busy times, it kind of bottlenecks up here. So this will allow a freer flow of, peds. And then obviously, I believe the children walk their bikes from once they get to here, they walk it into Sickles area.
Mhm.
So that's
Rich,
where we're at.
can you give a description of if there's between the drop-off space, call it the purple rectangle, will there be any sort of barrier between the passage lane and the dropping off lane, or some sort of either curb, or I don't know what you call those orange things that stick up?
We haven't gotten that far. Right now, we're looking at the location of that drop-off area. This hatched area is there's a hydrant there. So we were looking at these 3 spots and then these 3 spots. This is the old driveway that goes away. So you'll pick up some parking here. So it would really be these 6 spots or so. And we're proposing just really paint. We talked about it at our last meeting, maybe showing it as a hatched area, more of like a loading drop-off area. So
Right.
in the event, say a child forgot a form that they needed that morning, or their homework, or their lunch. It'll even allow, during non-drop-off times for someone to pull up, park for a couple minutes, run inside, drop off whatever they had to, or even pick up a sick child or whatever the case. And then, so it's a multi-function area.
Okay,
That's kind of how we're looking at it.
rather than a strict drop-off lane that if you're in it, nobody can pass by, right? Okay, I see.
Right. Yep.
May I ask one more question, Rich? Just looking from the park side at south here, where it says proposed new parking, your little arrow on the left where it says proposed. That first parking spot right there, when the first and second, I'm not an expert, but it strikes me as potentially dangerous. That car will be backing into exactly where the kids will be crossing.
Yeah,
Is
this
that
is
a good
just,
spot?
this
Rich,
is,
if I could chime in here a minute,
Yeah.
Rich, we spoke to me and the superintendent, and business administrator Dave met out there, and we were going to look at making that teacher parking only as best we could. So hopefully you wouldn't have people coming in and out of there when the kids are coming out. Rich, does the road stay the same width pretty much?
the road stays, yes.
Yeah, we
Except-
couldn't put,
Except down here.
and we really couldn't put like a barrier there, because then if one car didn't pull out right away, the rest of the cars would get stuck in there.
I mean, it
Right.
seems to me that those 2 spots, Chief McGovern, I don't know what you think, but those 2 spots, the 2 first ones to the west, they just strike me as,
This is
Potentially
just
not safe.
this was just a quick and dirty concept plan that they submitted to us, just to see how many parking spaces we can get.
Right, so I think what you're saying, if you took some of those spots and maybe hashed it off so you wouldn't have
Yeah.
parking, you kind of eliminate one spot and divide it up to two, so you'd have a little more space there. But again, if everything goes as planned, when the kids are coming and going, those cars should not be moving. It should be the teachers' spots in the morning and at the end. But I see what you're saying. If you back out of those spots as close to the walkway, but Rich, if we just hash marked, got rid of one spot and just made a little wider there, that should kind of take care of that.
Yeah, and then we still need to lay it in from an angular design.
Yeah.
So this first spot is going to be angled this way, which is going to open this up, and then this one may not start until maybe over here. So that'll open this area up of concern.
Yeah, because that's a really busy area. Sometimes there are dozens of kids crossing at the same time. So anyways, just thought I would leave that thought.
Okay, thanks.
Observation.
Rich, could we landscape that and put like a curb? Is that what that is right there? Would that be like landscape with curb or something?
Yeah, this is curved and
Okay,
lawn
so you
area.
couldn't park there. Okay, so you'd have a
Yeah.
little gap. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm. All right. Any other question or comments from the council? All righty.
Mayor, just noting then that the interlocal agreement will be on for approval on 5/10, and the authorization to go out to bid will also be on the 5/10 agenda.
Yep, we have to move on this pretty quickly to get it done for the fall.
Yes,
Kids
sir.
back to school. So, Rich, thank you very much. So,
Okay, I'm unmuted. I mean, I'm interested in expanding some of the conversation about,
oh, you muted yourself, Chris.
I'm here to, comment on the Willow Street parking or the Willow Street project. I would just like to say, I've been before this council countless times, I guess you could count them, requesting an audience and attention to the school project and Willow Street safety and traffic flow. And each and every time I was told that this is a Board of Ed issue. It's not for this council. We've gotten in heated arguments about whether or not this committee or this council should be listening to it. And now I find out that you've been meeting with the engineers and the Board of Ed, and now you're racing to get a proposal on for the next, for a May meeting. Not once have you talked to me or the neighbors about it since I've been bringing it up in these council meetings. So a couple of things I'd like to know. One is, when does the public on the street of Willow Street get to see these official plans before they're presented? And two, as I have a question for, I guess, Chief McGovern and potentially Rich Gardella, does anyone know the reason why 3rd Street is closed for drop off and pickup?
Okay, those are totally separate things.
No, they're not, Mayor Lucarelli. With all due respect,
Chris,
I'd like to
Chris.
address the safety concerns, as it was stated by
Chris.
the council member, that there are dozens of children backing into the street. Okay, you are increasing the intensity of Willow Street significantly by adding back into the street parking. And every single person with a half a brain will realize that you're increasing the intensity on a school street and a park street, when I have been before this council asking for you to do it in a less intense way. I asked you a question about 3rd Street because I believe the reason I suspect you don't have driving on 3rd Street is for safety. And now you're doubling the intensity on Willow Street, where there's younger children with less attention. And I am begging of you to give consideration to this. You are racing this down. Now you want to introduce it right away. You even use your own words. We need to hurry up on this if we got to get to the next school year. Your words, Mayor.
Are you through, Chris?
Yeah, are you?
Chris, if you can't be cordial, we're gonna have
When are
to.
you ever cordial, Mayor? Come on. This
Chris,
is your
Chris.
forum. You're not cordial. I'm not cordial. I asked the chief and
Teresa?
the engineer.
Teresa,
Yes, sir.
so at least let me mute him so I can get a word in edgewise. Chris, you've brought plans before us. We've expended taxpayer dollars to review your ideas. Your ideas are unworkable. All of your concerns have been brought to the borough engineer and the Board of Education's engineer. They have all been considered. The plan we have is the product of that. All right? Your assertions that we're making it more intense are ridiculous. Your designs that you proposed are unworkable. What we're looking to do is create a compromise or to incorporate your concerns into this plan so that we can make the admission and dismissal of the children much safer and provide more parking for the facility to get the teachers and other workers of the school off the side streets. So your attitude is not appreciated. All right, because we are working towards a better product. The fact of the matter is, you are not a civil engineer. Okay, you do not have expertise in this matter.
Nor do you.
Fair enough. But we are working with the engineers to achieve the goal.
So again, I appreciate your calm
We'll
demeanor.
get the information at the same time that the public does in the presentation when the documents are ready.
And you're claiming that adding parking to an existingly narrow street is not an increase in intensity. Is that what is your?
You're misrepresenting it in so much that the spaces will be filled by teachers and administrative staff prior to the admission and after the dismissal. So to say this is less safe is absurd.
I beg to differ. I mean, I watch it every day.
How can you
You're gonna have-
differ? How can you differ if the traffic flow occurs before the children arrive and after the children leave?
How can you police that? How can you ensure that those spots are only going to be used for those purposes? It's an
Okay.
impossible
Enough.
situation. And again, I asked the question for evidentiary purposes, why isn't 3rd Street open for drop off and pickup? Because I would
That's a
suggest that if
totally
the
separate
reason
issue.
is safety, then why don't we close Willow Street to everyone except for the teachers? What? I mean, come on, work with me here. And by the way, just for the record,
Chris, you
plan that
cannot
I-
ask me to work with you after I just told you we have been.
and no, you haven't. I've been before you multiple times and you've rejected me. You told me you would look at it. I never once spoke to Rich Gardella about this or Chief McGovern, not once. The Board of Ed came back to me and said, we rejected your plan. There was never any dialogue. And by the way, the plan that they rejected, that they proposed, was not the one that I proposed. So what you saw rejected was an
Okay.
enhanced plan, which was
Chris,
more intense
Chris,
and wider.
Chris,
Why are you
we
interrupting
can't
me?
Chris, the plan you proposed would have had us 70 feet into the park.
No, absolutely not. I beg to,
Chris?
that's what they changed it to. The reason why they wanted to push into the park was because the school refused to give up any of their frontage. I was asking the school to give up 8 feet of their frontage, okay, to accommodate the plan. And then we have area that we can encroach into the park without messing up our green acres or open space plan. The only concession would be that if we put parking there, which we would need to do, it would be for park purposes, quote unquote, which is sort of what we do now with the signs.
Chris, your assertions are incorrect. Your measurements are off. And it is unfeasible to ask a school to give up part of their front yard. You're being
Why is it
ridiculous.
unfeasible?
Chris, you are being absolutely ridiculous.
You're
We have
asking,
listened
you're
to
asking
you.
us as a
We have
borough to
been
give up
cordial,
park. Wait a
and we
minute,
have
wait a
run
minute.
it through the engineers.
You're saying it's unfeasible for us to ask the school to give up any of their front yard, but at the same time, the school is asking this municipality to give up space in the form of parking, to give up actual land.
No,
in
Chris,
the
you're
same breath-
incorrect. Chris, you're incorrect. What we're allowing them to do is to put parking in the right of way.
It's
Now,
not
if
a
you
right, it's
continue to
land,
miss-
it's grass.
Chris, if you continue to misrepresent the facts, you're going to give a wrong impression.
Okay, well, here's my impression. You have grass there now. Is that true or untrue? And
It's
you're gonna
in
make-
the right of way, Chris.
What right of way? Well, but it's not a right of way right now.
Chris,
Mayor, do you want me to try to take this? I'll give it a shot. Chris, we did have multiple meetings with the Board of Ed. I was copied on emails that Sean sent to you. I know he did tell you in his most recent email that he would have his engineers look at the front of the school. But from everything that we've been told by Bowler Engineering, who's working with Rich, they are not comfortable giving up any more of the school frontage for a variety of reasons. Most notably, the number of kids who land on that area before, as part of admission and dismissal. As far as right-of-way goes, right-of-way has nothing to do with whether something's green or not. Right-of-way is measured from the center line of the roadway, and it's so many feet into property. And the borough has the right to develop that for any type of a transportation-related project, whether it's parking or sidewalks or drainage or anything along those lines. So the only area we're talking about there is in the right-of-way. There will be increased parking. We did take your suggestion as per your last email to the superintendent to look at angled parking as opposed to head-on parking, which Rich is working with Bowler Engineering. And the expedition of time is nothing more than wanting to get this done while the children aren't there from a safety perspective. So, and so it's ready to be opened in the fall.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, I just wish we had had more of an opportunity to be a part of these discussions, as I've been before this council so many times asking for that. And now it seems as though we've lost the opportunity to do it in a fair and normal fashion, most likely, in my opinion, due to the mayor's attitude. And now we have to hire professionals to put a stop to everything. So it's just an unfortunate situation, thanks to the mayor again, for not allowing us to have a forum about this.
Chris,
Just chime in for a second.
Go ahead, Meg.
Chris, I just wanted to, thank you for bringing these ideas and proposals forward. I think it's really important in the scope of the redevelopment that's happening over at Sickles. And, you're obviously very familiar with it since you live nearby and you see it every day. So I appreciate that input because I don't live there and I only experience what I see in the times that I drop my kids off at school, whether it's on bike or in a car. And so, I appreciate the efforts and the thought and the time that you've spent to put into this. I being not part of the engineering and DPW committee or the school plans, I'm not intimately involved with or aware of what's happening with that development. But I do sincerely hope that these ideas have been taken seriously and considered, because I think the safety of all of our school children and staff and teachers over at Sickles is very important. And that if there is a way to improve that, that we would do our best for it to make sense. So, I just want you to know that I really appreciate that. And I know it's been a lot of time and effort. And a lot of times, for example, tonight was the first time I had seen the proposed plan that Rich shared earlier. So, a lot of times things are happening with certain council members or committees or borough professionals that not everybody is fully aware of. So, I just want you to be aware of that. And hopefully the plan that's ultimately decided on is a good plan and works. I think if I understood you correctly, your suggestion was that based on Rich's plan as presented tonight, your suggestion was to close Willow Street, if that's the plan moving forward?
Well, yeah, mimic what they do on 3rd Street for the safety of the kids at Knollwood, which, by the way, get dropped off in an apron that's about a third of the width of Sickles School, the way that's designed. So where the cars drop off, if you pull into Knollwood and drop your kid off at the front door, that works for Knollwood at about 8 feet, where they have about 20 feet at Sickles. So again, that, the ability of Sickles to do it is just, there's an unwillingness to do it. I'm not sure who's pressuring who not to make this work, but
and you're referring to the drop off at Sportsman's across the street?
No, at actual Knollwood. I don't, where if you pull into Knollwood's parking lot, which I'm sure maybe it's closed during, but you see the way they designed it. The sidewalk goes right up to the door.
Yes.
And it's right. The same at Red Bank schools, Rumson schools, Holy Cross, St. James. Yeah. Those sidewalks go right to the school. And Sickles actually has significantly more room between the Willow Street curb cut and its front door than just about any school that I've seen in the area of comparable size. So to suggest that it can't be done is just a narrative they want me to swallow, which I won't.
I understand what you're saying, but I think the concept of closing Willow Street is a whole nother conversation, because if you did that with the parking as it's set up or as proposed, you would have to create some sort of drop off, and where would you, mechanism to do that?
The whole original intent, and
right.
You know what? I don't know how they made it work for Knollwood, but right. If we can't be reasonable adults and meet as volunteers and in a civil manner, and not do things behind people's back, then I guess we're gonna have to consider the alternative and take the evidence that was, either we open Third Street or we close Willow Street. That's probably what we're gonna be looking at.
I appreciate your input, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Next person.